I did a video a while back saying this is the last golden era of anime. As there already have been a few, I didn't mean as far as money being made, because if anything, I do predict the industry will triple their profits in the next few years. What I meant was that the stories, the characters, the unique Japanese humor that's felt through the dialogue and exaggerated animation itself, the common tropes, everything that makes anime easily stand out and signature will be slowly eroded over time as priorities shift within the industry. Toei Animation is already headed in this direction, looking to cater to the Chinese market in North America because there's more money to be made over there in doing that, admittedly leaving behind their own Japanese audience, raising many red flags. So I figured I'd give my thoughts on this headline as I did on my live stream last night at the time of recording this. Click the notification bell and all to tune in when I go live, but I'll keep my thoughts very concise for this video itself. The boom continues. Toho announces plans to double anime production by 2032. Now, just to sum it up without going through this whole article, basically they're aiming to double the amount of anime they put out annually from 14 to 30 a year, doubling their staff of people hired, leveraging partnerships with animation studios to keep up with this pace, strengthening the lead in managing content abroad by increasing overseas offices, meaning outside of Japan, inevitably leading to raising budgets and more money invested. And there's nothing inherently bad or wrong about this. I understand the motivations why. Anime is widely popular and demand is at an all-time high, and they want to be able to meet that with supply. But this is a trend or pattern I see with a lot of industries or companies that become too big for their britches. A clear-cut cliche example of this is Disney, where they had a successful streak of Marvel movies building brand trust with their audience, then eventually left them behind to cater to the modern audience instead. Sound familiar? Then the rate at which Marvel movies and shows that were being released increased exponentially, where it became like homework just to keep up with, something you feel like you had to do until you thought, you know what, I think I'll skip this one, until you just dropped out of the franchise altogether because it's no longer fun to stay tuned in nor obligated to the brand of Marvel anymore. Now, the only difference between Disney and any Japanese company or studio is that they don't have an activist problem over there the way we do over here. So if their quality of entertainment starts decreasing because they're more focused on quantity, it's unintentional, where over here it's on purpose. Now, as I discussed on stream, it seems the focus for a lot of Japanese studios or publishers who are looking to expand their reach and pace of anime being produced is the animation itself. And while yes, it should meet a certain level of standard and high quality, you don't want any to look like what people are criticizing at the moment, which is the beginning after the end. But at the same time, not every anime needs to look like Demon Slayer at its finest, a point I heavily make in my video I referenced earlier. Check that out if you want a more elaborate explanation of that topic. But to be brief, if that's your sole focus is animation quality, understand the type of consumer you're attracting with that. There's always going to be better animation tomorrow compared to yesterday, and the type of fan that's only there for that will always move on to the next. That's the mistake that Disney made, misunderstanding that if they just throw a $500 million budget at every project, having everything take place in outer space and with CGI, the most flashy powers and graphics, people will forever show up, not understanding why people showed up in the first place. Like Iron Man, the first movie, is a movie I revisit still to this day because Tony Stark's origin story to me is far superior than the second, third, or many Marvel movies that has way more action or more better graphics. The origin stories what kept that movie grounded and really spoke to his character on a human level, which makes it superior in my point of view. The other is doubling their staff. It's almost like a natural law that occurs, is that when a company experiences a lot of success, is to hire a mass amount of people, and that can lead to a lot of bloat. Bureaucracy grows and a lot of people doing little to nothing. There's a natural occurrence that happens in companies called Price's Law, where a square root of employees in any job do 50% of the work.
Here's Price's Law. The square root of the number of people in a domain do 50% of the work. You have 10 employees. 3 of them do half the work. You have 100 employees, 10 of them do half the work. You have 10,000 employees, 100 of them do half the work. Right, so here's a nasty little law. As your company grows, incompetence grows exponentially and competence grows linearly. Got it? Right? Because with 10, it's 3 who are doing half the work, but at 10,000, it's 100 that are doing half the work. So 9,900 of your employees are doing as much as the best 100. You might not even know who the best 100 are, but probably they know, and maybe their peers know too. And so one of the things that's really interesting when big companies start to shake, which means maybe they've had a bad quarter or 2 bad quarters, and the stock price starts to tip down, and the hot people who have options are not very happy about that, and maybe they start to announce layoffs, all the 100 people who have opportunities leave, and they're the ones who were doing half the work. So boy, that puts your company in a pretty rough situation, because now you've got the 9,900 people left over who were only doing half the work. And the next time you announce layoffs, the next most productive 100 leave. And so then you're left with nobody who's productive and a massive overhead payroll. Price's Law, you can look that up.
Now, Japan's work culture is different. They're much more dutiful and efficient, but it's still something you can't avoid regardless. Another concern of mine is the increasing shortage of animators in Japan, which will lead to outsourcing work to other countries, but then leads to the chipping away of the cultural Japanese touch I personally enjoy in anime. So the more that practice is embraced, the more that cultural identity will be uprooted out of anime, because these people will never have a personal invested interest in the work as the creators do themselves. Which is why, side note, I understand if animators will embrace AI, but hear me out because this topic can be very divisive. I talked about this on stream the other day to really flesh out this idea more than I did in my Studio Ghibli filter effect. I understand if an animator creates an original character from their own imagination, their own ideas, and then uses AI to do the in-between frames when they have a character stand to kicking, because that can have a 12-hour workday turn into an 8 or 9 hour workday. I understand if animators and mangakais want to use AI to do in-between framework, because that can be very tedious. Yes, there is lessons to be learned and experience to be gained in going through that tedious process, but it gets to a point where it's like, all right, you've done it a million times over. It's okay if you use AI these few times or a couple times to help you mitigate work instead of outsourcing those frames to other countries. I would rather the animators have direct control over the animation itself in front of them, rather than trusting other regions when they outsource work to them, because it's inevitably going to lose, as I mentioned, that cultural identity that I personally enjoy in anime. And also in my live stream I did when discussing this, we were watching a documentary for the making of Mortal Kombat 3.
My name's Dan Ford and I do sounds and music and tell people.
And in there they mentioned the first Mortal Kombat only took 4 people to make.
I was part of the first Mortal Kombat. Back then there was just 4 of us. 4 people that made Mortal Kombat 1 in less than a year.
That was wild and a shock when I saw that. I never knew that. And from there it sparked a cultural phenomenon that is known as Mortal Kombat today. And even for the third one, the team was still a circle of guys just goofing around in a warehouse, having fun, enjoying what they were creating.
Sector's got it. Sector's got it in the bag. Raiden would win. Even try to for it now, buddy. Come on, pal. Come on.
It sounded like me and my friends do while in a room discussing silly names for the characters and fatalities they will have.
And then we'd have these powwow sessions where everybody would kind of throw out names.
Shang-Chi-san.
Look at that Saibot.
Ignore Shang-Chi.
Combinations for
Shang-Chi-san.
Saibot X11.
There goes X11. See, anything with X is cool. I like X11.
There it goes.
Saibot.
Everybody says Saibot.
That could be a good name for a robot.
Saibot.
We're gonna have Mayo.
Oh man, why? DEFCON is overused.
There was no bureaucracy or HR department micromanaging things, a bunch of red tape hindering the creative process, unnecessary bloat of people doing nothing, no Hollywood production, none of that. These were creative people doing what they do best, because creativity is working with limited resources, but thinking outside the box to produce something as they have, not having massive amounts of budgets, which discourages creative thinking, if anything. And shout out Sonya Blade too, man. She was looking nice in that documentary. And I liken this to From Software, where I think From Software really has the right approach, and it's almost like an anomaly the way they operate, where they really keep things simple. They don't go above and beyond to do anything outside of their norms. They know their audience, and they make games strictly to cater to that audience. And if people outside of that audience show up, that's just a bonus for them. I remember when Elden Ring came out, they had like massive amounts of popularity surrounding it, and I never played any of the Souls games. And I bought Elden Ring, and I was a normie to it, and I quickly learned how hard this game was. And I was like, God, man, this game is, I can die in like 2 hits. What is this? It was something I had to get used to. And I remember hearing a lot of game journalists and mainstream gaming outlets saying, hey, they should switch to difficulty settings, or at least give an option. This game is too hard for casual game players. And From Software had the right approach. They weren't trying to widen their audience. That's not their goal. They said, no, we're just going to keep it the way it is, because that's what our player base audience wants. And they're not focused on massive amounts of extreme, extravagant graphics, because I say this all the time, it's only so real you can make the sky look or the ocean look. That's not their focus as far as graphics. Their focus is the game mechanics and what their players want from it and what type of game they want it to operate as. Graphics of anything are like not prioritized. And I think overall graphics is not a selling point anymore for games. Like that's not what's going to get the player base hyped. Even with the Nintendo Switch 2, like I remember their selling point, if you want to buy like what the $500 one, well yeah, Breath of the Wild will look better on the Switch 2. The graphics would be more enhanced. And I remember watching it like that's not, I really don't care about that. Like I just care that Breath of the Wild is a fun game to play. Like I'll still go back and play Wind Waker and Ocarina of Time to this day on the N64. And like graphics aren't a selling point. This isn't the 90s or the 2000s anymore where everybody was looking forward to, oh, the graphics on this console is going to look even better this time, where it got to a point where it's like, all right, it's only so better the graphics can get. So that's a bad selling point. And I think From Software has the right approach. They're not looking to massively expand their budgets, expand their team. I think the Astrobot studio also has the right approach, where they have a very lengthy vetting process as far as interviewing people who want to work at their studio. We're not just going to hire people who are extremely competent at coding or game development. It's no, do you have a passion for what you're working on? Or do you have historical knowledge of our games that we already worked on? Like shit like that. So From Software, they have the right approach. That it almost seems like an anomaly. They're not looking to expand their team or their budget. They look to only cater to their fan base and player base and to satisfy them to the fullest and not the global audience. I think that's the right approach. But that's all I have for this video. Tell me what you think in the comment section below. And definitely come through my live streams on this channel, man. Click the notification bell and all to get notified when I go live. We be having a lot of fun and a lot of fun conversations. There's never no telling where the topics will flow or go. I recently celebrated 5,000 subscribers on my live stream and popping champagne on stream. So we just have a good time. So definitely come through. And if you haven't already, check out my music on Spotify. Links in the description. If you love those Samurai Champloo, lo-fi Miller boom bap vibes, then my music is definitely for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Free think. Peace.